Hey, folks. Good morning. Happy Monday. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope your weather is absolutely beautiful. It has been raining nonstop in Florida for what feels like 3 weeks, and I can finally see the sun. So thank God, because I need to go lay out because obviously my tan decided to go away, which is annoying because it's Florida. I'm supposed to be tan year round. Everybody, good morning. Glad you're here. Do me a favor, if you don't mind, click on that share button. So if you look down at the bottom of your screen, just about center screen, you're going to see share. Click on that. Toss in a note. Let your network know that you're watching this. Also, if you like what you're hearing, click on any one of those emojis. Take your pick. The brain one is always fun. But make sure you click on those. And in the comment section, if you have a question or if you have a comment, feel free to type in there, just like this. I'm going to actually do it. There you go. Most of you know how to do this. You've been around the block a few times, and you should be good to go. Also, let us know where you're at in the world. That is the part I like the most. I told our guests right before we went on, we have a very consistent audience, which I love. So we've got folks from the Philippines, from the UK, from Ireland, from Turkey, from Spain, France, Saudi Arabia, so Africa, and then all over the US. So we're thrilled for that, folks. Glad you're still here. And with that, why don't we jump in and get going? So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Maule. Welcome to episode 128 of the 11FS FinTech Insider Breakfast Show. In this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday, straight into your homes here live on LinkedIn. I'm here every Monday and Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. David Breyer or Simon Taylor or some other great host from London does this at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which I think is 8:30 a.m. in London on those other days. I also want to highlight the 11FS Daily Brief that I do here on LinkedIn. Every morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, we post a short, about a 5-minute video summarizing 3 news stories from the past 24 hours that caught our attention and should have yours. So, for example, on today's Breakfast Brief, I talked about the FinCEN story that's breaking all over the place, the one that's actually by BuzzFeed News, and about 100 other reporters across the globe that got their hands on about, if I did the math right, about 0.02% of the SARS reports that were filed between 1999 and 2017. So that's 18 years worth. They figure in those reports that were filed, something about $2 trillion of suspicious account activity that's happening. So it's one heck of a story, one worth diving into and taking a look at. And I also talked about Chime and their most recent raise, which makes them worth more from a market cap than Robinhood. If I did my math right, I think Robinhood's worth about $11.5 billion right now. Chime just jumped to $14.5 billion in market cap. Maybe we'll do a show on what I actually think that means at some point. But we've had folks from Chime on before. Maybe we'll get Chris Britt, their CEO, on to talk to him. But meanwhile, today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Maria Schuld. Did I say it right, Maria? I know we practiced this, and I probably said it wrong. Schuld, I did say it right. All right, everybody. Sam gets points today. Division Executive, FIS Core and Banking Division. On today's show, we'll take a look at how new technology helps community banks stay competitive in a fully digitized world. And Maria, I was just talking about Chime and their most recent valuation. So good topic. I think it's safe to say we've seen a ton of players come into the space as we all expected, right? I mean, I don't think at FIS you were surprised at all at the number of banks and neobanks that have jumped into the market.
Absolutely. Well, good morning, Sam. It's awesome to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. But you bet. I mean, right? There's been a lot of competition in the neo space, and it keeps us all on our toes, right? It's good for the industry.
It is good for the industry. I agree with you. And let's talk a little bit about the industry, if you don't mind, and really where you came from. We were talking earlier on the show that you're a 20-plus year veteran like me in this space. But you spent a good significant amount with that with FIS and, Metavante or some of the other companies. Can you mind talking a little bit about how you came to work at FIS?
Sure. Yeah, no, I've been certainly very privileged to be here at FIS. I joined via acquisition about 10 years ago. And here at FIS, I have an opportunity to lead our digital and core banking business, especially for community regional bankers, right? So it's a it's just an awesome space to be talking about. Prior to this, I had an opportunity to more focus on the payment side, card payments and fraud. So just really seeing all sides of banking and, especially focused really on this community space.
Yeah, it's fun. So we do have, by the way, a great international audience. So I'm looking at a lot of folks from London, from Lisbon. God, I miss Lisbon, Toronto. You kind of take your pick. So from an international crowd, glad to have you here. And then good representation from here in the U.S. So Cedar Falls, Iowa. Man, I love that. New York, Atlanta, you take your pick. And Maria, you, like you mentioned, you're in Milwaukee. I believe you're our first Wisconsin guest. So let's make Wisconsin proud, okay?
Very happy to hear it. Yes, I am coming to you this morning from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And I think people don't understand. I can't believe I'm saying this because I grew up in Detroit. So I'm going to give Wisconsin some praise here. Milwaukee actually is a pretty cool town with a lot of talent, as is Madison, Wisconsin. You do have a lot of young talent that you can tap into there.
We absolutely do, and a lot of fintech here in Milwaukee. The community has been really very focused on how do we help to foster more fintech coming into the Milwaukee area. So it's a great town.
Yeah, I agree, man. And we're seeing, that could be a whole different show where we talk about you could call it the flood of talent from San Francisco, New York, and other places where we're seeing regional cities that are just seeing an influx of talent that's coming in as a result of COVID and some of the other stuff that's taking place. But again, that could be a whole nother show. So let's talk a little bit about FIS, especially around community banks. I think I've thrown this number out a couple times for our audience, but in the U.S., the numbers fluctuate, everybody. So it depends who you're looking at. But if I'm not mistaken, there's something like about 5,000 banks still in the U.S. At all scale, but a significant majority of those are community banks. So your client base is massive, is it not?
It's absolutely massive. And just really, I think as a fintech, we recognize that technology needs for community banks are different. And so we've been very focused on bringing offerings, right, that are very specific to the community banking market.
And I was doing some reading before the show, and you've done some writing on this and speaking on this. We've all talked about the effect of COVID on different industries. The effect on community banking is massive, is it not?
It's been massive. It certainly has. I think, our community bankers, right, had to adjust certainly to kind of a changing model. We know the level of relationship. That's just part of what our community bankers provide, right? They're known for relationship. They're known for trust. They're known for that, very local market presence. So to be impacted in this way, certainly through COVID, was pretty significant. Particularly, right, when you think about just the need for digital solutions and digital transformation. That's really been, I think, the key for all financial institutions during this time, but certainly a huge focus for our community bankers.
Yeah, I mean, and it's rough for them. And the U.S. it's really not that different from, say, the U.K. where I used to live. In that in the U.K. you'd have like co-ops or smaller banks that managed those areas. Here in the U.S., you get outside of big urban footprints. These community banks especially are a lifeline for those folks, and for the services they provide. They flat out do. And I'm not saying they don't in urban environments because it's a little bit of a different dynamic there. But in the rural areas of the U.S., which is a massive geo footprint, the need for community banks to be able to service their customers in a ever competitive environment, that makes, I think, life at FIS even more interesting.
Absolutely. And especially if you look at it strictly from a COVID perspective, the payroll protection program and the need for really our community bankers to get involved and bring this important, infusion of capital right into small businesses in their location has been so instrumental really to their overall just health of the community, right, as well as the industry and the community banker themselves.
I'd love to get your opinion on this. There's a theory of thought that community bankers don't understand technology or don't understand the disruption that's coming their ways. And I don't know that I 100% buy into that whatsoever, to be blunt, that they're blind, that mobile was, that online account opening, that mobile, and you take your pick, was going to be so prevalent. I mean, I really don't buy in that so many of them didn't know this was coming.
Yeah, I don't either. And I will tell you, every community banker I talk to absolutely understands the importance of digital, the importance of mobile, especially candidly, right, during this last 6 months, right? We've seen these kinds of solutions really, take hold over the last 10 years. But I think certainly, right, what's happened over the last 6 months has caused all industries, right, to just take a closer look at what their offerings are and how they really respond. I think community bankers, like all bankers, right, look at these technologies and they know they need them to compete, but they're looking at kind of where they can, right, what's the return on investment. And boy, this last 6 months, I think has candidly told us all that story, right? That it can't be a question anymore of, what's my return on these solutions? It's really the lifeline of the business right now.
Yeah. I've said this repeatedly on this show that COVID is an accelerant, but it's also a mirror. It's revealed so many cracks in industries, and it's also showed those that were making the right steps saw distinct advantages in market share throughout COVID. So you look at retail, right? You look at Walmart and Target and Amazon, how well they've done because of the digital services that they were lining up. You look at Zoom. I mean, I still laugh that Zoom has come out a winner on this. I'm not knocking Zoom. I'm just tired of Zoom. Say that in a nice way. But, it's the same. I'd say it's the same with FIS. So, for example, and I did a whole story on this. Y'all had the announcement about the new offering, ClearEdge. It's not like ClearEdge suddenly came into the works in March of this year. FIS has obviously been working on this product. So can you talk a little bit about what ClearEdge is?
Absolutely. No, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, right? So ClearEdge has been in the works for quite some time, but it has a very unique opportunity right now, right, through COVID. And what ClearEdge really is it's a different way for us to offer products and services, working specifically with community bankers, right? We listen to the feedback and we put together a program that we think really allows community bankers to embrace the technology, but do it in a more simplistic manner, whether that's contracts or contractual terms for that matter.
Yeah. I love what Corey LeBlanc said. So Corey's Chief Digital Innovation Officer for Origins Bank in Louisiana. I love Corey, smart as they come. Corey's saying, in speaking as a community banker, Origins big though, Corey, come on. But a large community bank. We knew this was coming. A lot of bankers simply just didn't move fast enough. They kicked the can down the road for too long. I would agree with that assessment that in a lot of cases that was the case. And it makes it interesting for solution providers like FIS that I think a move to something like ClearEdge is smart, right? It gives you something that is, what's the word I want to use? Fit for size. Does that make sense?
It's perfect.
Yeah, and I like that. And of all things, I think if you looked a couple of years ago or even last year and you said, we're doing something that's around streamlining the contracting process, you probably would have caught some flack. And I think post-COVID, people are like, yes, thank you for that. That makes sense. So what kind of offerings does this enable for community banks? So I'm in Corey's position. What does this do for me?
Absolutely. So without a doubt, right? Let's talk first about the solution, because what's very important, right, for our community bankers is that they are able to compete. And to be able to compete, they need first-class offerings, right? They need modern banking utilities. So to start with, right, so you've got your core banking services included, digital services, image services, payment services, right, regulatory and security that FIS brings. And what we've done is we've taken all of those solutions and really brought them together in a bundle. And why is that important? Because if you're a community banker, right, the feedback we've heard is we don't want to be nickel and dimed, right? We need a more consistent price point. And that's what this particular solution does, right? It's a fixed price bundle, right? That a community banker can have that experience of knowing they're getting top-notch solutions, but at a price that they can really predict and manage around. Now, what we've done though, right, is we've simplified the contracting process as well, right? We all know the contracts that we deal with in fintech can be pretty onerous, right? So we've consolidated that down to a very concise contract. We've looked at this as more of a subscription model, which means that you don't have that long term. You understand what your deconversion fees will be, right? It's really whether we don't feel like you're going to need those deconversion fees, candidly, because they're great solutions. But if you need to do that, you want to understand and have those be predictable and understandable going forward. And that's really what ClearEdge does, right? Is it's taking the feedback we've gotten from our community bankers and tried to work all those variables into a bundle that they can take part in and really exercise with the flexibility that they need.
It's funny, for the past, Lord, fintech in the earlier days, so say 2013, 14, 15, 16, the number one image you would see in every presentation is the one of Wells Fargo and the great unbundling of banking, and everyone on this call knows what I'm talking about. It took, Wells Fargo's homepage and they just arrows going everywhere for every fintech company that was solving those solutions. And in fact, when you look at what ClearEdge is, it's bundling services up. But I love the contractual element of that, and the idea of this as being a SaaS model makes sense, right? Absolutely. It just does. Yeah, Ryan Wright has asked a great question, and Ryan, I'm sorry, I'm not sure where you're from, but he says, how does this compare for companies already using FIS for their core? That's a good question. How does that work for your existing customers?
Absolutely. When we had first brought ClearEdge in, from an FIS perspective, we were really looking for new business, but it became very, very obvious to all of us, right, that our existing customers could make use of this as well. So without a doubt, right, we are also working with our community bankers who are renewing with us, that if ClearEdge is a strong, good solution for them, we are looking at that as well, right? It really, it's a strong offering, and it gives the community banker that flexibility that they need.
Yeah, another good question. Dan Fenney. Hey, Dan, over in London. That's a good question. How well are the FIS and WillPay cultures integrated following the merger? Because Maria, your career at FIS started from an acquisition.
Yes, it did.
So I'm going to guess you might have been through a few of these. So as an executive, how is this? How do you approach these, and how well has it been going?
Yeah, so I will tell you, right, I think, probably all of us candidly have been through acquisitions in our career, right? I have been fortunate in that every acquisition I've been involved with, right, I've taken a very positive attitude and embraced the culture, right, of the understanding very, very quickly, right, where you can continue to contribute to the organization. At the end of the day, that's the key, right? If you continue to contribute. And one of the best things about the WorldPay FIS combination was culturally, right, the companies were very, very similar. And really that customer first, right, the high technology, high level of capital reinvested in solutions. But WorldPay really brought FIS a merchant, right, the merchant side of the business that we had not been as strong in prior to that acquisition. And so we say we're advancing the world the way the world pays, banks, and invests, right? And if you think about kind of the previous acquisitions that we've done, they've really built out that offering so we can offer the full ecosystem, especially candidly to our core clients, and a lot of those are the community bankers.
So this is actually one of your clients, if I'm not mistaken. So Corey had asked a question, by the way, because I gave him a compliment. So that's how this show works, everybody. So if I give you a compliment, you better ask a question. So Corey, he wrote, to service our customers moving forward, the ability to move quickly and have flexibility will be key. Access and control of our digital products and data will be the foundation of this. So here's your question, Maria. How is FIS making this possible to their FIs now and not in a typical cycle? Because, amen, we are not living through a typical cycle. Every day when you open up the news, it's like, oh, God, now what?
Absolutely, and that's a really important question, right? Because we are both all living through really, unprecedented times, right? That seems to be the key word these days. So yeah, it absolutely, we are working through this with any customer who has an interest and wants to talk about it, right? Candidly, right, we're trying to work through it as part of renewals where we can, because it is a very, really fundamental change, right, in how you how you work with FIS, but happy to talk to any of our customers. And to Chris, thank you. Appreciate your partnership. Candidly, right? We know we have to earn the business every day, right? And this is one of those pieces of I think new offering that helps us to keep forefront with our bankers.
Ooh, a good question. I knew this one was coming. This is from Sid Rahar, he's a company founder out in San Francisco. And Maria, there's no way you haven't been asked this question a million times. Open source has killed expensive monolith software from large companies in various areas like operating systems, database, web servers, hardware chips, etc. What role do you see open source playing in banking cores, if any, from your perspective?
No, it's a great question. It's an awesome question. So, I think overall, right, if you take a look at FIS and where FIS makes our investments, right, we have embraced, candidly, other fintech. We've sponsored accelerators, right? We've been very critically involved in all those pieces. So we really have a philosophy of collaboration, right, versus competition. And I think the key, right, through all of these solutions is even in ClearEdge, we're including our Code Connect offering, which really allows even a community banker to reach out via APIs to some of these other solutions, right? So I feel like I think we are modernizing in many ways, right, within the ecosystem. And candidly, I think all of us as fintechs need to be considering all of those topics and ensuring, right, that we're embracing the technologies and advancing forward.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the role that companies like FIS play are critically important, especially when you're looking at the community banks across the U.S., right? I mean, being a service provider for a top, I'll even say 50 or 100 bank in the U.S. can be extremely different than providing some of the solutions that you need to do for smaller community banks. I mean, it flat out is, right? The budgets of, I used to work there, right? The budgets of a Citi, of a Chase, of a Northern Trust, where I used to be, as compared to what you're doing with a shoestring budget, that in a nice way, at a smaller bank is unique. So, and it's tough. So they are heavily reliant upon you and your teams at FIS, providing them solutions. And again, I'll give ClearEdge a good shout out, right? A different way of working together. That's incredibly important, right? Even how you engage contractually is an incredibly important advancement.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key to choosing the right partner, right? Is a company like FIS. Yes, we are a large company. We have a large footprint. But the community banking space, right, has been key for us in our history and how we have grown. And I think the recognition, right, that candidly, they need different types of technology. And as fintechs, we have a responsibility, right, to continue to provide solutions. And this one is very specifically geared toward community bankers, right? And that's why we did this, was how do we take all the investment and capital that FIS represents and make sure that we are helping our community bankers to thrive in this environment, right? And then as we certainly move out of this environment.
So is ClearEdge developed with community banks in mind? Were they at the center of this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is an offering specifically for our community bankers.
Okay, that makes all the sense in the world. And that would be the question I always used to ask as a consultant when I was working on how much consultants make for saying, do a comparison between FIS and then fill in the space, right? You got to love consultants for that, for what they're doing. But usually one of the things we would consistently say is where are you going to be at the table when it comes to product roadmap?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you engage from that standpoint? That's a big decisioning point when you're reliant upon a massive provider. How does that work with community banks for you? What is that communication? How is that set up?
Absolutely. So the ability to modernize, right, in the community banking space is very, very critical. So at FIS, we've gone through tremendous modernization and continue to, both in the core space, products, digital, our payments area, image area, all of them have gone through tremendous modernization. And that's where this ClearEdge is so critical, because now we've said we've got all the solutions. Now, how do we effectively work together in a different way, right? In a more collaborative way that better mirrors what the needs of the community banker is. And that's, I think, the beauty, right, of a company like FIS that offers the level of capital and investment that it can, mirrored, right, with bringing those investments in an affordable way to the community banking space.
Okay, now believe it or not, we have come up on the top of the hour. I told you this goes by quick. I am constantly amazed. I always look down, I have a clock sitting next to me, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So, folks, believe it or not, we're at the top of the hour. Maria, thanks for joining us. Where can people find out more about you? And if they want to get in contact with you, where's the best place for them to go?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn is the best place. Happy to connect on LinkedIn. And for information on ClearEdge, get info at fisglobal.com is a perfect spot. But please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. It would be great.
Okay, folks, that's it for today. Before we leave, though, I have an important announcement to make. The Breakfast Show is created as a response to lockdown. And however much fun we've had over the past few months, times are changing, believe it or not. So this is going to be the very last week of the Breakfast Show. But don't freak out. Okay, we're going to continue to do our live content here at 11FS every Tuesday at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. We'll take a deep dive into the most interesting news stories of the week. Every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we'll bring you a live interview with an industry leader and really get under their skin to find out how they got where they're at and where they think the industry is going. Okay, so it's been a fun run. Lord, we'll end up doing 130 plus shows from this Breakfast Show format, but we're adjusting to life just as everyone else is in this crazy COVID world. So we hope you'll join us for that. We'll constantly push out information on that on our channel. So tomorrow, Adam Davis will be here on the UK show. He'll be talking to John Osler, the UK CEO at Finder.com. So that's it for today, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the questions, Maria. Thank you for being here. And we'll see you all tomorrow.